Hey warriors. You know what nobody talks about? That split second right before you open your eyes in the morning. That microsecond where you're not anyone yet. Not the disappointment, not the failure, not the person who's falling behind. Just consciousness. And then reality crashes in like a wave and you remember, oh, right, this is still my life. But here's what's insane. The ancient Stoics discovered something that modern psychology is only now catching up to. That split second. That's the real you. Everything after that is just the story you've been telling yourself so long, you forgot it's fiction. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, was a wealthy merchant who lost everything in a shipwreck. Standing on the shore with nothing, he looked at a philosopher and said, "I made a prosperous voyage when I suffered shipwreck." He wasn't being poetic. He finally woke up. The life he was protecting, defending, maintaining, it was already sinking. He just couldn't see it because he was too busy bailing water. Look around your life right now. Not Instagram, not your carefully curated highlights, your actual life. The one you're living at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep. The one where you've gotten so good at being disappointed you don't even register it anymore. The one where maybe tomorrow has become your most repeated prayer. You're not depressed, you're just done lying, and that's not the end. That's the beginning. Listen to me. Right now, there's a version of you that never gave up, that kept showing up, that chose courage over comfort so many times it became who they are, not what they do. That version isn't in the future. They're trapped inside you, suffocating under every excuse, every "I can't," every "I'm not ready yet." And they're screaming. That tightness in your chest, that restlessness, that's not anxiety. That's your future self trying to break through. Here's what happens in the next 45 minutes. You stop being a spectator in your own life. You stop researching transformation and start embodying it. You stop waiting for someone to give you permission and you take it, but only if you commit right now. Like this video, comment "I choose me" and mean it. Subscribe because this channel doesn't do fairy tales. We do battlefield medicine for warriors who forgot they were fighting. And don't you dare skip ahead. Every second matters. The Stoics didn't write philosophy for scholars. They wrote survival manuals for people in the arena, people bleeding, people terrified, people who had to find strength they didn't know they had. You're in the arena right now. Stop fighting alone. Let's go. Number 1. You're not depressed, you're domesticated. Strange title, I know, but stay with me. Think about wild animals for a moment. They don't get depressed in nature. They don't lie awake wondering if they're living their purpose. They don't compare themselves to other wolves or eagles or bears. They just are. They hunt when hungry, rest when tired, play when playful, fight when threatened, live completely in sync with their nature. Now think about zoo animals. Elephants swaying back and forth, big cats pacing the same path endlessly, parrots pulling out their own feathers. These aren't different animals. They're the same animals in unnatural conditions. They're not sick. They're responding perfectly normally to an environment that contradicts everything they're designed for. You are the elephant swaying, the cat pacing, the parrot self-destructing. You wake up to an alarm that jolts you out of sleep. Your body's natural rhythm doesn't matter. You eat lunch at noon whether you're hungry or not, because that's when lunch happens. You work 8 hours straight, even though human attention naturally cycles every 90 minutes. You force yourself to be productive when your body wants rest, social when your spirit needs solitude, still when everything in you wants to move. And then you wonder why you feel off, why nothing feels quite right, why you're exhausted even though you didn't do anything. You're not lazy, you're not broken, you're a wild thing trying to survive in captivity, and it's making you sick. The philosopher Diogenes lived in a barrel and owned nothing. People called him crazy, but he once said to Alexander the Great, the most powerful man alive, "Stand out of my sunlight." He refused to be domesticated by anyone's expectations, not society's, not emperors, not even common senses. And he was, by all accounts, perfectly content. You don't need to live in a barrel, but you do need to ask yourself, what parts of my life am I living because they're actually mine? And what parts am I performing because I've been trained to? That job you hate but keep because it's stable. Who taught you to value stability over aliveness? That relationship you maintain out of obligation. Who said your duty to others supersedes your duty to yourself? Those hobbies you abandoned because they weren't productive. When did joy require justification? Here's a small experiment. Tomorrow, do one completely impractical thing purely because it brings you alive. Sing loudly while making breakfast. Take a different route to work just to see something new. Laugh at something that's not even funny. Talk to yourself. Dance badly. Do something that would make a well-adjusted adult uncomfortable, but would make a wild, free version of you smile. Notice what happens, not just externally, but inside. That little spark, that feeling of, "This is silly, but I like it." That's your wild self, still alive under all the domestication, still waiting for permission to come out. The loneliness makes sense too. You can't connect authentically while performing a domesticated version of yourself. You're introducing people to a character you're playing, not the person you actually are. And characters can't form real friendships. They can network. They can maintain pleasant acquaintance, but they can't truly know or be known. What would your wild self do? Not the irresponsible version, not the self-destructive version, but the version of you that hasn't been trained, hasn't been tamed, hasn't learned to suppress every inconvenient impulse or desire. That version is still in there, still valid, still worthy of consideration. Start small. Reclaim one part of your day from the script you've been following. Maybe it's breakfast. Eat when you're actually hungry, not when the clock says to. Maybe it's your morning routine. Do what energizes you instead of what you should do. Maybe it's simply noticing when you're performing versus when you're being. You're not depressed, you're caged. And cages, even comfortable ones, even ones you've built yourself, will always make wild things sick. Type it below if you're claiming your power today. I choose aliveness over approval. Number 2, the addiction nobody talks about. You're addicted to suffering, not because you enjoy it, but because it's become your identity, your excuse, and your safety net, all rolled into one familiar hell. And the scariest part, you don't even realize you're choosing it. There's a story about the Stoic philosopher Chrysippus. When he lost all his possessions in a shipwreck, he simply said, "Fortune wants me to philosophize with fewer distractions." Not toxic positivity, not denial, just a man who refused to let circumstances write his story. But you've made your circumstances into a monument. You've built an altar to your pain, and you visit it daily. Listen to how you introduce yourself, even just to yourself. I'm someone who struggles with depression. I'm not good at relationships. I've always been anxious. These aren't descriptions, they're declarations. They're identities you're protecting. Because if you're not the person who struggles, who are you? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your suffering has become useful. It explains why you haven't achieved what you wanted. It justifies staying small. It protects you from trying and failing. It gives you something to talk about, to bond over, to hide behind. And some part of you knows that if you let it go, you'd have to face the terrifying possibility that maybe you're not limited. Maybe you're just scared. Think about how much time you spend rehearsing your pain, replaying conversations that hurt you, scrolling through old photos of better times, telling the story of what went wrong again and again, researching your symptoms, reading about others who feel like you do. You're not seeking solutions. You're seeking confirmation. See, it really is that bad. I'm not making it up. Nobody said you're making it up, but you are maintaining it. Every time you identify with your suffering instead of observing it, every time you make decisions based on protecting your wounds instead of honoring your potential, every time you choose the familiar pain over the unfamiliar possibility of feeling better. Here's what addiction looks like with suffering. You feel bad, so you consume content about feeling bad, which makes you feel worse, which validates your original feeling, which makes you consume more. You're not seeking help. You're seeking company in your misery. And algorithms know this. They feed you more of what keeps you scrolling, not what sets you free. What if your pain isn't a personality? What if it's just pain? Present sometimes, absent others, weather that passes through, not climate you live in. What if you could acknowledge it without centering your entire existence around it? Try this. Go one full day without mentioning your struggles, not to others, not to yourself. Notice how often you want to. Notice the impulse to explain yourself through your difficulties. Notice how strange it feels to just exist without your suffering as context. That strangeness, that's withdrawal. You're detoxing from an identity you didn't realize you were clinging to. You've spent years building evidence for why your life is hard. What would happen if you spent 1 week building evidence for why it's workable? Not perfect, not easy, just workable. Notice moments of ease. Catalogue small wins. Acknowledge when things go right, even mundanely. Train your attention toward possibility instead of constantly scanning for proof of your limitations. This isn't about lying to yourself. It's about telling yourself the whole truth instead of only the painful parts. Yes, things are hard sometimes, and also you're still here. And also you've survived every bad day so far. And also there are moments, however brief, when the weight lifts. Those moments count too. Why do you keep discounting them? The most radical thing you can do is stop making suffering your baseline. Stop treating joy as the exception that needs explanation and pain as the default that just is. What if you're not a depressed person having occasional good moments? What if you're a whole person experiencing various states, depression being just one of many? Language matters. Identity matters. The stories we tell about ourselves become the lives we live. You've been telling a story where you're broken, stuck, fundamentally lacking something others have. What if you told a different story? Not a fake one, a true one, where you're struggling right now, yes, but also learning, also growing, also capable of change. Your suffering is real, your pain is valid, but it's not your master unless you keep bowing to it. Stop feeding it your attention, your energy, your identity. Stop checking if it's still there like a wound you keep reopening to make sure it hasn't healed. What lies beneath the suffering? Who would you be if you weren't the person who struggles? That question terrifies you. Good. That terror is important information. It's showing you where your real work is. Number 3. The invisible cage of potential. Listen, you've been carrying around this nuclear reactor inside you. This raw, untapped power you tell yourself is too valuable to waste on anything less than perfect. But you know what nuclear reactors do when they never get used. They don't stay powerful. They leak. They corrode. They become the most expensive paperweight in history. You're not protecting your potential. You're using it as a hostage. Don't make me prove what I'm capable of, or I'll have to face what I'm not. The Stoics had this wild concept, sympathia. everything in the universe breathing together as one connected system, but you've weaponized it against yourself. If I'm connected to everything, then my failure infects everything, so I'll just not play. You've turned cosmic connection into cosmic paralysis. Congratulations. You've found the one way to make philosophy make you weaker. Epictetus stood in front of his students, this former slave who became one of history's greatest teachers, and said something that should have shattered every excuse. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. 2 steps, that's it. But you've been stuck on step 1 for years because you figured out the cheat code: never define what you'd be, never have to do what you have to do. Your dreams are intentionally blurry. I want to be successful. Successful at what? By whose measure? By when? You keep them abstract on purpose because specificity means accountability. Clarity means you might actually have to show up and discover you're average. Or worse, discover you're excellent, but it requires becoming someone you're not sure you can sustain being. Here's the truth bomb. You're not afraid of being bad at things. You're afraid of being good at things that don't matter. You're afraid of climbing the mountain and realizing the view isn't what you thought. So you camp at the bottom, telling yourself you're preparing for the ascent. That's what you need. Not a shipwreck, but an interruption. Something that forces you to stop auditioning for your own life and actually live it. You know why you're lonely? Not because people don't see your potential, because they do. They see you walking around with all this unused ammunition, refusing to fire because you might miss. They see you treating your life like a museum piece instead of a weapon. And they can't connect with glass cases. They need someone real, someone bleeding, someone actually in the arena getting dirt under their fingernails. Here's your mission, and it's going to hurt. Do something you're terrible at, in public. Post the disaster, share the catastrophe. Let the world see you at 30% capacity, stumbling, learning, human. Because that's where life actually happens. Not in the highlight reel, but in the blooper reel you've been too proud to film. That feeling in your stomach right now, that's not fear. That's your unused potential trying to escape. It's been banging on the walls of your excuses for so long. It's developed its own consciousness, and it's furious at you for keeping it theoretical. What would you do right now if you stopped saving yourself for later? If you stopped acting like your potential is a retirement account you can only withdraw from at the perfect moment? You'd try that thing, start that project, send that message, make that call, and maybe, probably, it would go sideways. But you'd be alive. You'd be burning fuel instead of hoarding it. Your potential doesn't need a shrine. It needs a battlefield. It needs to be spent, tested, broken, reformed through actual collision with the real world. The only way to honor what you could be is to destroy the fantasy and build the reality. Stop conjugating your life in future tense. I will be, I could be, I should be. Start living in present tense. I am, I do, I fail, I learn, I try again. The gap between those two languages, that's not a learning curve. That's just cowardice wearing a graduation cap. You're not preparing for life. You're avoiding it. And every day you spend in potential is a day you're not spending in actual. The math is simple. The choice is brutal. Make it. Type this below if you're done chasing perfection. I am ready to be real, not perfect. Number 4, the permission you're still waiting for. Here's something nobody wants to hear. That thing you're waiting for permission to do, nobody's going to give it to you. Not because they're withholding it, but because the permission you're seeking doesn't exist outside your own decision to begin. There's a Stoic concept called prohairesis, the faculty of choice. Epictetus considered it the only thing truly within our control. Not outcomes, not other people's reactions, just our choice to act or not act. But you've outsourced your prohairesis. You've given your power of choice to everyone except yourself. You're waiting for your parents to finally say they're proud, for your partner to give you the green light, for your boss to recognize your value, for the universe to send a sign, for circumstances to align perfectly, for someone, anyone, to tell you, yes, you're allowed now. You can start living. But think about who you're actually waiting for. Your parents are trying to figure out their own lives. Your partner is dealing with their own fears. Your boss is managing their own pressures. The universe is indifferent. Nobody is sitting around thinking about whether you have permission to pursue your dreams. They're all too busy seeking permission for their own. What are you actually waiting for? Break it down. When you say, "I'll do it when I'm ready," what does ready look like? When you say, "I'll start when the time is right," what would make the time right? When you say, "I need support first," whose support specifically, and what would they need to say or do? You can't answer those questions concretely because you've kept them deliberately vague. If you defined what you're waiting for, you'd realize either it's never coming or it's already here and you've been ignoring it. So you stay in waiting mode, safe, stuck, slowly calcifying. The depression you feel has a name: learned helplessness. It's what happens when you've spent so long believing you can't act without external permission that you've forgotten you ever had agency. You've practiced powerlessness until it became your default state. And now, even when doors open, you don't walk through them because you're still waiting for someone to explicitly tell you it's okay. Here's the secret nobody tells you. Everyone is faking it. Everyone feels unauthorized. Everyone is making it up as they go. The people you admire who seem so confident and certain. They started before they felt ready. They acted without permission. They decided their own authorization was enough. That artist you follow posted their work when it felt too raw to share. That entrepreneur started their business while everyone said it was too risky. That person living the life you envy made choices that terrified them without waiting for anyone to say it was okay. The only difference between them and you is they moved before they felt permitted. Try this. Make a list of everything you're waiting for permission to do. Then next to each item, write whose permission you're seeking. Then ask yourself honestly, what would they actually need to say or do for you to feel permitted? Most of the time you'll realize there's no actual answer. You're waiting for a feeling that can only come from doing the thing, not before it. You're waiting to feel confident before you speak up. But confidence comes from speaking up scared and surviving it. You're waiting to feel worthy before you pursue what you want. But worthiness comes from honoring your desires enough to try. You're waiting to feel ready before you start. But readiness comes from starting before you're ready. What would you do today if you gave yourself permission? Not recklessly, not without consideration, but genuinely. If you decided that your own authorization was sufficient, what would change? You'd probably send that message, start that project, end that situation, begin that conversation, make that investment in yourself, take that risk you've been calculating for years, do the thing you've been researching and planning and preparing for without ever actually doing. Here's what'll happen. It probably won't go perfectly. You'll make mistakes. You'll feel like an imposter. You'll wonder if you were wrong to start without proper permission. Good. That discomfort is growth. That uncertainty is courage. That fear is proof you're doing something that matters. Give yourself permission to be exactly who you are, to want what you want, to try what you want to try, to fail, learn, grow, and try again. Nobody else can give you this. Nobody else is coming. The permission you're waiting for is the permission you've been withholding from yourself. Start today. Not perfectly, not with everyone's blessing. Just start. Begin before you're ready. Act before you feel authorized. Live before you feel permitted. Because the only permission that matters is the permission you've had all along, the choice to choose. Claim your fresh start. Write this below. I give myself permission to begin. Number 5. The grief nobody sees. You're grieving something nobody around you recognizes as a loss. There's no funeral for the person you didn't become, no memorial for the life you imagined, no condolences for dreams that died quietly while you were being practical. But the grief is real, and it's drowning you. The Stoics talked about apatheia, not absence of feeling but freedom from destructive emotions. But they never said grief wasn't valid. They understood that some losses deserve to be felt, not just philosophically managed. Your grief looks like depression because nobody taught you it was grief. It feels like emptiness because you're mourning something that never was. Potential unlived, paths not taken, versions of yourself that circumstances or fear or practicality killed before they could breathe. You're not sad about what happened. You're sad about what didn't. Think about who you were at 17. Not the awkward parts or the embarrassing memories, the dreams, the certainty that your life would be extraordinary, the conviction that you'd matter somehow, the belief that the real you would eventually emerge and everyone would finally see. What happened to that person? They died slowly, not in one dramatic moment, but across 1,000 small surrenders. Each time you chose safety over authenticity, each time you accepted less because more seemed impossible, each time you lowered your expectations to match your circumstances, instead of expanding your circumstances to match your vision, death by 1,000 practical choices, and nobody mourned, because you kept functioning, kept showing up, kept being responsible. On the outside you were fine, just maturing, getting realistic, growing up. On the inside, you were watching yourself become someone you never wanted to be. And the gap between those two realities is where the grief lives. Real acceptance doesn't mean you don't grieve what could have been. It means you grieve it fully and then decide what to do with what is. But you've never let yourself grieve. You've pushed it down, called it ungrateful, told yourself others have it worse. And unprocessed grief becomes depression, becomes numbness, becomes a heaviness you carry without knowing why. Your loneliness is partly this. You're surrounded by people who know the person you became, but never knew the person you were. The version with bigger dreams. The one who believed in magic, in possibility, in their own significance. That person is gone, and nobody around you even knows to miss them. Here's what you need to hear. It's okay to grieve who you didn't become. It's okay to mourn the life you imagined. It's okay to feel sad about opportunities that passed, choices you can't undo, versions of yourself that circumstances killed. That grief is real. That loss matters. You're not being dramatic, you're being human. Try this. Write a eulogy for the person you didn't become, not to wallow, not to give up, but to honor that version of yourself. To acknowledge what was lost, to say goodbye properly instead of carrying the ghost of your unlived life everywhere you go. I grieve the version of me who believed anything was possible, who hadn't learned to protect themselves yet, who trusted easily and loved freely and thought they'd change the world. That person died slowly, and I never said goodbye. I'm saying it now. Feel that? That release. That's what happens when you name your grief. It doesn't disappear, but it stops haunting you. It becomes something you felt instead of something you're avoiding feeling, and there's power in completion. The difference between healthy grief and stuck grief is movement. Healthy grief feels the loss and then asks, what now? Stuck grief loops in the loss forever, replaying what could have been, refusing to engage with what is. You've been stuck. What now? That's the question grief is supposed to lead you to. You've mourned long enough in secret. You've carried this loss in silence long enough. You've let it define you as depression instead of naming it as grief. What now? Now you decide, will the person you didn't become be a gravestone you visit forever or a foundation you build from? Will the dreams that died stay dead, or will you resurrect what's still worth wanting? Will the grief you feel continue to paralyze you, or will you let it teach you what really matters? Your grief is valid. Your loss is real. The person you didn't become deserved to exist, but you deserve to exist too. The current version, the one reading this, the one who survived everything that killed those other versions of you, the one who's still here, still trying, still wanting something more, even though wanting has hurt you before. Honor the grief. Feel it. Let it crack you open, and then let what's inside spill out. Not the person you should have been, the person you still can be, different from what you imagined, shaped by loss and time and reality, but yours, actual, possible. Grieve fully, then live fully. You owe the person you didn't become that much to not waste the person you are. Number 6. The noise you mistake for thinking. Your mind hasn't been quiet in years, maybe decades. There's always something playing: worry, memory, fantasy, analysis, judgment, planning. You think you're thinking, but you're not. You're just producing noise, mental static that passes for consciousness, and it's exhausting you. Listen to your mind right now. Actually listen. There's probably a voice commenting on this paragraph, maybe skeptical, maybe hopeful, maybe already planning what you'll do with this information, maybe criticizing how you're reading it. That voice never stops. Even when you sleep, it keeps going. You've mistaken this constant narration for consciousness itself. But consciousness isn't noise. It's the silence that hears the noise. You, the real you, aren't the voice. You're the awareness that notices the voice. But you've been so identified with the narrator for so long that you've forgotten there's a difference. Here's what's happening. Your brain is producing thoughts the way your heart produces beats, automatically, constantly, without your permission or input. But somewhere along the way, you started taking every thought seriously, started believing every narrative, started identifying with every judgment your mind generated. Your mind tells you you're worthless. You believe it's revealing truth about you. Your mind replays that embarrassing moment from 5 years ago. You think it's trying to teach you something. Your mind spins catastrophic futures. You call it being prepared. But it's not truth, teaching, or preparation. It's just noise. Mental machinery doing what mental machinery does. The depression you feel. Look closer. How much of it is actual circumstances and how much is your mind's story about circumstances? How much is reality and how much is the narrator's dramatic interpretation of reality? You've been living in your mind's version of your life instead of your actual life. Right now, in this exact moment, before your mind adds its commentary. Are you okay? Not your situation, not your future, not your past. You, here, now, breathing, reading, existing. Strip away the story, strip away the judgment, strip away the narrator. What's actually wrong right now? Probably nothing. Probably you're just here. And your mind is screaming that here isn't enough, isn't right, isn't what it should be. But that's the noise, not the truth. You're lonely, partly because you can't be present with people while your mind is running commentary. Are they judging me? Did that come out wrong? Do they actually like me? I should say something more interesting. Why did I say that? You're not in the conversation. You're in your head about the conversation, and people feel the absence. Here's your practice. Catch the narrator. Just once today, notice when your mind starts telling stories. Not to stop it, just to recognize, oh, that's thinking, that's noise, that's not reality, That's commentary on reality. You're washing dishes and your mind says your life is meaningless. You're just going through motions. You'll always be stuck like this. Catch it. Notice, that's not truth. That's just mental noise, a thought passing through, whether in the mind. You're in conversation and your mind says, they're bored. You're boring them. They wish they were talking to someone else. Catch it. Notice, that's not fact. That's just the narrator generating content. A story, not reality. The more you catch it, the more you realize you are not your thoughts. You're the space in which thoughts occur, and that changes everything, because space can't be threatened, can't be hurt, can't be diminished. It just is, vast, open, unchanged by whatever passes through it. What if you didn't auto-accept every thought your mind produces? What if you treated thoughts like you treat strangers on the internet, with skepticism? That's an interesting opinion, mind, but I'm not sure it's accurate. What if you demanded evidence before accepting your own thoughts as truth? Your mind says, you'll never figure this out. You respond, based on what evidence? I've figured out things before. I'm learning right now. That's just a thought, not a prophecy. Your mind says, everyone is ahead of you. You respond, that's literally impossible to measure. And even if true, so what? That's just comparison, not reality. The depression lifts when you stop believing your depressed thoughts. The loneliness eases when you stop believing your lonely thoughts. Not because the thoughts stop, they might not, but because you stop giving them authority over your reality. Silence your mind, impossible, but you can stop obeying it. Stop assuming it knows something you don't. Stop treating it like an authority instead of what it is, an organ generating content, most of it repetitive, much of it inaccurate, all of it optional to believe. The real you, the awareness beneath the noise, has been waiting, quiet, patient, unchanging, while your mind has been producing its endless drama. That awareness is still there, still untouched by every thought you've ever had, still whole, still here. Find it, in the gap between thoughts, in the silence before your mind fills it with commentary, in the space that notices the noise without being the noise. That's you. That's home. That's the place from which everything becomes workable. Stop living in your mind's version of your life. Start living your actual life. It's quieter here, simpler, more real, and you've been welcome here all along. Number 7. The choice you make every morning. You wake up and within 3 seconds you've already decided. Not consciously, not deliberately, but decided nonetheless. You've chosen, once again, to be who you were yesterday, to feel what you felt yesterday, to live the same patterns, think the same thoughts, make the same choices that created the life you're trying to escape. Here's what you don't realize. You're not stuck. You're just choosing the same thing every single day and calling it stuck. You choose to check your phone before you check in with yourself. You choose to replay old hurts instead of practicing new thoughts. You choose to scroll instead of create, to consume instead of contribute, to wait instead of initiate. Every single choice is creating your life, not the big dramatic choices. The small ones, the ones you make without thinking because you've made them so many times, they feel like inevitabilities instead of choices. You choose what you focus on, and focus shapes reality. But you choose to focus on what's missing, what's wrong, what you don't have. And that focus creates a life of perpetual lack, regardless of what you actually possess. Choose differently. Tomorrow morning, before your feet hit the floor, ask yourself, who do I want to be today? Not who you should be, not who you were yesterday, who you want to be, and then make one choice that honors that person. Maybe that person doesn't scroll for 30 minutes before getting out of bed. Maybe that person speaks to themselves kindly. Maybe that person takes a walk, writes 3 pages, reaches out to one person. One choice. That's all it takes to begin being someone different. Your depression is partly a choice, not the chemical part, not the circumstances, but the decision to keep thinking the thoughts that create depression, to keep focusing on what reinforces it, to keep behaving in ways that deepen it. You're choosing it unconsciously. What if you chose differently consciously? Your loneliness is partly a choice too, the choice to stay isolated because reaching out feels risky, the choice to wait for others to initiate because initiating feels vulnerable, the choice to stay behind your walls because being seen feels dangerous. Every morning you choose isolation and call it protection. What if tomorrow you chose connection? Just one text, one call, one genuine "How are you?" to someone real. One small act that says, "I'm choosing to be in relationship with life instead of hiding from it." You're waiting to feel like changing. But feeling follows action, not the other way around. You won't feel motivated until you act motivated. Won't feel confident until you act confident. Won't feel connected until you act connected. Choose the behavior first. The feeling catches up later. Here's your practice. Evening inventory. Before bed tonight, review your day and count how many times you chose unconsciously versus consciously. How many times you reacted out of pattern versus responded from intention. How many times you were yesterday you versus the person you actually want to be. Don't judge. Just notice, because you can't choose differently until you notice you're choosing at all. You've been on autopilot so long you forgot there's a manual option. There is. It's always been there. Tomorrow morning, use it. 3 seconds of consciousness before you become yesterday again. 3 seconds to ask, who am I choosing to be today? And then one small choice that honors that answer. That's all it takes. Not a complete transformation, not a personality overhaul, not a dramatic life change, just one conscious choice instead of one unconscious pattern, and then another, and another. Until choosing becomes your new pattern. The life you want isn't somewhere in the future waiting for you to arrive. It's in your next choice, and the one after that, and the one after that. You're building it right now. The question is, are you building it consciously or unconsciously? Wake up tomorrow and choose, really choose. Not because you'll do it perfectly, not because it'll be easy, but because you finally understand. You've always been choosing. You might as well choose on purpose. Write this as a promise to yourself. Tomorrow I choose consciously. 45 minutes, maybe a bit more. But you stayed. That means something. It means some part of you recognized truth in here. Some part of you is tired of the old patterns, the old stories, the old version of yourself that keeps recreating the same suffering. The Stoics didn't promise transformation. They promised practice, daily repetition, moment-by-moment choosing. Because knowing truth isn't the same as living truth. You have to choose it, consistently, relentlessly, even when it would be easier to slip back into the familiar patterns. Everything we covered, the domestication, the addiction to suffering, the protection of potential, the waiting for permission, the unprocessed grief, the mental noise, the unconscious choosing, all of it points to one truth. You've been living life at a distance, performing it, analyzing it, preparing for it, but not actually living it. You don't have to waste another 25 years. You can choose differently, starting tomorrow morning, starting in your next interaction, starting in the next breath you take after reading this sentence. Here's your final practice. Before you sleep tonight, set one specific intention for tomorrow morning. Write it down. Tomorrow I will spend the first 5 minutes awake without my phone. Tomorrow I will speak kindly to myself. Tomorrow I will do one thing that scares me. Something concrete, something that proves you're choosing differently. Then tomorrow night you'll know. You'll know if this was just another video you consumed, or if this was the day something actually shifted. You'll have evidence, and evidence builds belief, and belief builds momentum, and momentum builds a life. If this message landed somewhere real inside you, like this video, share it with someone fighting their own invisible battle. Drop a comment below, something real, one sentence that captures what shifted in you. Subscribe, because we're not doing motivation, we're doing transformation for warriors ready to stop hiding. Your life is waiting, not in some distant future, right here, right now. In tomorrow morning, when you open your eyes and get those 3 seconds before the old story takes over. What will you choose? The arena is waiting. Stop spectating your own life and fight. Drop this final affirmation in the comments. I choose to live, not just exist.